Talia stared into the mirror. The face she had seen endlessly since birth looked back at her. How do I look? Like an angel, Your Highness. The nursemaid, busily combing her long hair, smiled until her eyes curved like crescent moons. You truly take after Lady Sinevure. With all this effort in dressing, it feels as though I'm seeing Lady Sinevure at 18 again. The nursemaid's thoughtless remark that it was a compliment to say she resembled someone else filled Talia with irritation. Talia slapped away the plump hand that toyed with her hair. Enough brushing. Just bring me the dress. The nursemaid waddled clumsily toward the chest, her expression resembling a scolded puppy. Talia's eyes followed her with disdain. How could anyone be so slow-witted? The woman fumbled and dug through the chest with little grunts until finally pulling out a red satin dress. Glancing nervously toward Talia. Look at this, it's the dress Lady Sinevure wore when she first entered the palace. She must have kept it for you. Talia's face twisted with distaste. You remember what my mother wore all those years ago? Of course. How could I forget that day? Lady Sinevure didn't seem of this world. Just knowing someone so beautiful could exist was enough to bring tears to my eyes. Even His Majesty couldn't take his eyes off her. The nursemaid sighed with a dreamy, faraway look. Talia stifled a hollow laugh. Did this woman truly believe their meeting was some grand romance? Back then, the emperor already had an empress, with whom he had shared 6 years of marriage, and she had been heavily pregnant at the time. His encounter with Sinevure had been nothing but sordid adultery, neither more nor less. Even after the former Empress Bernadette's death and Sinevure's ascension as the new empress, the people had never forgotten. As long as Talia lived, no one would forget the shameless sin of their union. If you have time for useless chatter, finish preparing me. Of course, leave everything to me. The nursemaid dressed her in a fine velvet blouse lined with jewels. Talia tidied her hair again and gazed once more into the mirror. Wearing her mother's dress, she looked even more like her. Was the ominous sensuality that clung to her mother also beginning to stir within her? Talia fixed her eyes on the swell of her chest rising above the square neckline. Not dignified perhaps, but undeniably alluring. No one could deny that. Tonight, more than ever, she wanted to be beautiful. If possible, even more beautiful than her mother. Let everyone look at me. Let them forget Isla exists. A fierce hunger burned in her deep blue eyes. It was not the gaze of an imperial princess, but of a beggar on the street. Seized with sudden disgust, Talia grabbed a candlestick and struck the mirror. The nursemaid, startled, dropped to the floor with a thud. A sharp crack rang out as spiderweb-like fractures spread across the glass. Talia tossed the candlestick aside and spoke coldly. I'm sick of that mirror. Bring me a new one. Talia glared at her fractured reflection splintered into dozens of shards, then spun on her heel. Outside the palace annex, a gilt-trimmed carriage waited with 8 guards in attendance. Clearly, Sinevure would not allow her daughter to appear shabby. As she boarded the carriage, the new guard stepping forward to close the door blurted out, as if unable to contain the heat rising in his throat. Tonight, you look truly breathtaking, Your Highness. Talia shot him a sharp glare. She had no need of his praises. Don't waste words. Just depart. The man flushed with embarrassment and shut the door. The carriage rolled forward. Talia sank back into her seat, peering out through the fluttering curtains at the crimson-stained sky. If only tonight's banquet could be dyed that same color. If only chaos would erupt and ruin everything. Her fingers drifted to her lips and she pulled them away quickly when she noticed red pigment staining her nails. Her nerves felt like they were burning to the quick. But the palace ahead pulsed with bright music and radiant light. When the carriage stopped, Talia disembarked and strode toward the entrance. The attendant stepped aside and bellowed, Her Highness, Second Princess Talia Romgorda enters. A chilling silence swept through the vast hall. Head held high, Talia stepped into the golden banquet chamber. She felt hundreds of eyes rake over her from head to toe. She savored their shock, their anger, their discomfort and their reluctant awe as she advanced with graceful steps. The crowd parted like the ebbing tide, as if I were a plague. Talia smiled with venom at the thought. And then, someone blocked her path. What business brings you here? She raised her eyes to the man. Just one of those empty-headed followers who worshipped her virtuous half-sister, Allah. Talia gave him a sly smile, the very sort she had seen her mother use to ensnare men countless times. Am I somewhere I don't belong? The man's wary face flushed crimson. Flustered, he stepped back. Talia advanced closer than before, raising her chin proudly. This is my father's palace, and this banquet is for my brothers. What wrong is there in my being here? Meeting his eyes directly, she watched as he froze in place, unable to move. His nostrils flared, as though he were breathing in the rose oil her nursemaid had carefully smoothed into her hair strand by strand. His gaze blurred, intoxicated like a drunkard's. A strange satisfaction, mingled with deep disgust, surged within Talia. Without another word, she brushed past the stammering fool and walked boldly toward the center of the hall. Her brothers seemed not to have arrived yet. Normally, the crown prince of the empire and her half-brother Gairs would be standing tall in the banquet hall's center, or upon the second-floor dais, surveying the hall below like a sovereign. And at his side, always, was Ayla, radiating elegance and poise. Talia chuckled softly as she lifted a silver goblet from a small round table. But tonight, perhaps Allah Ramgorda won't be appearing at all. She remembered the image of Allah collapsing in the middle of the banquet hall, her face drained of all color, and felt a cruel satisfaction bloom in her chest. The way she had vomited wine across the marble floor looked almost as if she were spilling out her very heart. If only I could truly make it so. With the sharp tip of her polished nails, Talia scraped against the goblet's surface, producing a shrill, grating sound. As she recalled the sight of her half-sister convulsing on the ground, she remembered what she had prayed for. Just die, Ayla. Please never open your eyes again, Your Highness. Lost in her shadowy thoughts, Talia turned her head toward the voice nearby. A man stood neatly dressed in deep green ceremonial robes, one hand pressed over his chest. His face was familiar. After a moment she recalled, he was a figure who often appeared at gatherings her mother hosted. She could not remember his name clearly, only that her mother had once addressed him as Count Syrian. It has been a long time, Your Highness. You grow more beautiful by the day. Bowing, the man brushed his lips across the back of her hand. The touch left her with the unsettling sensation of a damp worm crawling over her skin. But Talia forced a smile. Did my mother ask you to keep me company? The Empress is always concerned for Your Highness, he replied diplomatically. But even had she not requested it, I could not resist speaking to you. Look around. Every man here has his eyes on you. Like me, they all long to approach, kiss your hand, and drown you in praise. But they swallow their desires, fearing the crown prince's disfavor, and you do not. I have already long since earned his hatred, he said with a sly smile. And what did my mother say? Please save my poor eldest daughter, doomed to wander like a black sheep. Her Majesty instructed me only to ensure that Your Highness fully enjoys the evening. Count Syrian guided her toward the stage near the balcony, and she told me to make certain you shine more brightly than anyone in this hall. The dancers retreated reluctantly, glaring as if their performance had been disrupted. But the Count ignored them, bowing low before her. Will Your Highness grant me the honor of this dance? Talia eyed his soft, uncalloused hand with distaste. They'd prefer if I simply vanished, or stayed quiet in some corner, pretending not to exist. But I won't. She placed her hand in his. At once, he drew her close and guided her across the floor with practiced skill. Though she normally loathed physical contact, even Talia could not help but admire his mastery. Count Syria knew the steps flawlessly and had the rare talent of making his partner shine. Talia had always loved dancing, but never had her movements felt so graceful. And it wasn't only her imagination. As the Count spun her expertly, she saw it in the crowd, hundreds of eyes following her every turn. The same nobles who had always scorned her, unable now to look away from the imperial bastard child they had once despised. Talia felt a surge of triumph. In the past, when she appeared in public, people had stolen glances while pretending not to look, expressions steeped in disdain and wariness. But tonight was different. Tonight, they looked at her the way they looked at her mother Sinavir, with fear tangled with fascination. She felt their gazes cling to her like threads, wrapping tightly around her body. For a fleeting moment, she was Sinavir, the most powerful, dangerous, and beautiful creature in the world. But her sweet victory was short. The music cut off abruptly. The true stars of the evening had arrived. His Imperial Highness, Crown Prince Garrus Romgorda, and Her Imperial Highness, First Princess Ala Romgorda, enter. At the steward's booming proclamation, the two imperial siblings strode into the hall with majestic poise, descending the marble steps, and in an instant, Talia was forgotten. Count Syrian offered a rueful smile and guided her toward the terrace laden with wine and food. Such a pity to have our delightful moment interrupted. He spoke lightly, perhaps trying to ease her mood, but she heard none of it. Her burning gaze was fixed on Ayla. Clad in a pristine white gown, she looked as radiant as ever, as though her recent humiliation had been erased from memory. Standing gracefully at her brother's side, smiling sweetly, Ayla stoked a fire of rage deep in Talia's stomach. Regal dignity and pride exuded from them, a majesty that neither Sunivir nor Talia could ever possess. Talia quietly watched as her half-siblings basked in admiration. When she turned back toward the tables, she caught sight of the nobles who had been gazing at Ayla and Garrus, now sneaking glances at her, exchanging subtle looks. Every nerve in her body tensed. She wanted to gouge out their eyes. Do not compare me to them. She forced her face into a mask of indifference, though her fury nearly burst from her chest. Then the man at her side whispered again, oblivious to her mood. It seems the two intend to ignore your highness entirely. What will you do? Will you go to them first and offer greetings? Isn't that why you came here tonight? Talia bit her lip. Indeed, she had come to ruin their perfect evening, to inject discord into their moment of universal adoration. And that was exactly what Sinevere would have wanted. Steeling herself, she seized her wineglass and turned toward her siblings. Then, with resolute steps, she began to cross the hall. At that moment, Varka's Ledgosyorkin appeared in the doorway. Talia froze in place. Her heart thundered wildly, as though ambushed without warning. True to his nature of disliking unnecessary attention, he raised a hand to stop the attendant from announcing his name, and descended the stairs with elegant, upright poise. Yet, despite his efforts, all eyes turned to Varka's. Even the crown prince's commanding presence seemed dimmed by his arrival. Talia devoured the sight of him greedily, from head to toe. As always, he wore the immaculate formal uniform of the Imperial Guard. The only difference from usual was that instead of the Rome Knightly Order's golden armor beneath his cloak, he now wore a black breastplate emblazoned with the sigil of the Black Horse, signifying his attendance as heir of House Syorkin and fiancé to Ayla. As Talia had expected, Varkas walked straight toward the center of the hall, where Garrus and Ayla sat. I pay my respects to your highness, the crown prince. He bowed to Garrus with perfect measure, neither excessive nor lacking, then turned to Ayla, who smiled shyly. Talia's fingertips trembled. She gripped her wineglass so hard that her knuckles turned white. When Varkas extended his hand to the true princess, Ala demurely placed hers in his. A twisting agony gripped Talia's insides. Don't touch him. Don't you dare touch Varkas. She longed to shout it, though she had no right. Would it not be better to leave the hall now? The man at her side, who had seemed to relish the prospect of trouble, now urged her softly. His words jolted her back to her senses. She had not come here to slink away in humiliation. Talia steadied her expression, raised her chin, and crossed the hall with regal grace. Those surrounding the crown prince, the first princess, and the eastern noblemen stepped aside, eager for spectacle. They would not be disappointed. Greetings, my esteemed brother, and my beloved sister. She deliberately ignored Varkas, directing her slow greeting only to Garrus and Ala. To meet his gaze head-on felt too dangerous, as though it would snap the last thread of reason she clung to. Instead, she fixed her eyes solely on Ayla's face, and spoke with mocking sweetness. I'm relieved to see you've recovered your health. Not long ago, you weren't looking so well. Thank you for your concern. Ayla's smile was pure warmth, untouched by shadow. A shiver raced down Talia's spine. Surely, this woman knew her half-sister had drugged her wine, and yet, her eyes held not the slightest trace of anger. She looked at Talia as one might regard a common object littering the hologoblet, a plate, a candlestick. Who would waste wrath on such things? The serene, almost indifferent composure stirred a surge of regret. TSK, I should have given her poison, not an emetic, even if it meant my execution, even if I burned forever in hellfire. Compared to this woman, even Gersa's naked fury seemed almost human. How dare you come here? Gers snarled, leaning close. His gleaming eyes swept her up and down with searing disgust. And in such vulgar garb, did your whore of a mother tell you to seduce my vassals, too? How harsh, brother. Talia spread her skirts wide in display. This dress is the very gown my mother wore the first time she met His Majesty, the Emperor. It carries deep meaning. A hush fell over the hall. Flames of fury flashed in the crown prince's eyes. Sadly, Talia loved playing with fire. Our father must have adored this dress. Don't you agree? Gersa's shoulders lifted as he bristled, on the verge of striking her. But his clever twin sister would never allow such a scene. With perfect timing, Ayla laid a hand upon his arm, restraining him, and turned to her half-sister with a clear, serene smile. Yes, it suits you very well. Her voice carried no malice, only the plain statement of a fact. The calm tone stoked Talia's anger all the more. Perhaps this woman thought even acknowledging the provocations of a worthless bastard child was beneath her dignity. Ala cast her brother a glance, urging him to remain composed, then stepped to her fiancé's side. Leaning against Varkas with a blissful expression, she said, "Still, thank you for coming. Today is a very meaningful day for us, especially for me. The more people who celebrate with us, the happier I am." Her delicate hand rested gently on the arm of the man who stood silently like a shadow. Talia glared at that hand, wishing to tear it apart. She dared not lift her gaze higher. If she saw Varkas smile at Ayla, she would surely lose her mind. Then Ayla spoke again, voice as soft as a feather. "Our official wedding date has finally been set. At the start of the season of winds, I will travel east to join Halsey Barkin. Before that, of course, we must receive the blessing of the saints and go on pilgrimage. We must leave before the heat arrives, so today may be the last time I see you." Her merciful smile made Talia's blood boil. "Is this truly the last time?" Talia said suddenly. "Then I simply must bless your future, dear sister." As she stepped forward, the man who had been quietly observing the sisters' silent war reacted instantly, extending his arm protectively before his fiancée. The sight of it sent a red haze across Talia's vision. Before Varkas could fully block her path, Talia flung her wine, splattering it across Ayla's chest. The dark liquid seeped into the white gown, staining the pearls and flowing down the skirt like blood from a pierced heart. "I pray every day that you'll soon look just like this." The hall gasped at her vicious curse. Even Ayla, who had remained unshaken until now, blanched, her face drained of color. Her expression of genuine fear nearly made Talia burst into laughter.